So our sixth technical session, as I just mentioned, is on manufacturing and services, key drivers for Viksit Bharat.
Through the vicissitudes of the last 3 decades, the service sector stood as the bulwark of India's economic growth.
Aided by the focus on policy and procedural reforms, physical infrastructure and logistics, the sector has emerged strongly over the years.
On the other side, the recent positive developments in the manufacturing sector,
driven by production capacity expansion, government policy support, heightened M&A activity, and private equity venture capital-led investment,
has created a robust pipeline for the country's sustained economic growth in the years to come.
What difference can these sectors pour into the dream of Viksit Bharat? To understand that, we have with us Sri Amod Kumar, IAS Deputy Director General, Unique Identification Authority of India,
Shri Gaurav Kishore Joshi, Deputy Secretary, Ministry of Heavy Industries, Government of India,
CS Mahavir Lunawat, Group Founder and Managing Director of Pantomath Advisory Services Group and former Council Member, the ICSI.
Dr. Rajiv Roy, Lead 1 on and former Dean, Academics at XLRI.
CS Rupanjana De, Council Member, the ICSI.
CS Manoj Purbe, Council Member, the ICSI. I request all of you to please join the dais.
I now request CS Dhananjay Shukla, Vice President, the ICSI, to please come in on the dais and greet our guest, Sri Amod Kumar, who's also the chair of the session with the ICSI planter.
I now request CS Pavan Chandak, Council Member and Program Director, to please come on the dais and greet Shri Gaurav Kishore Joshi with the ICSI planter.
Next, I request our session coordinator, CS Rupanjana De, Council Member, the ICSI, to please greet CS Mahavir Lunawat with the ICSI planter.
I now request CS Manoj Purbe, our session coordinator, to please greet Dr. Rajiv Roy with the ICSI planter.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, our coordinator, CS Rupanjana De, will introduce our guests and take the session forward.
Thank you, Sonu. I welcome everyone to this sixth and final session of the 52nd National Convention of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. It is themed on manufacturing and services, key drivers of Viksit Bharat. So my colleague in the council, CS Manoj Purve, and I, the co-coordinators, have the unfortunate task of being standing between our participants and the lunch, which is a difficult task, I understand, but this session is really going to be a very big value addition to the kit of knowledge that has been received throughout this national event, which has been so successful so far. And we have wonderful speakers with us. And so please bear with us for about 1 hour. We would be listening to their enlightened words. The Indian economy is gaining prominence on the global stage, and it is projected to be the fastest growing economy in the world in the coming years. As the world turns its attention to the Indian subcontinent, the impact of India's notable progress resonates deeply, fueling innovation and setting the stage for a new era of development towards the vision of Viksit Bharat. Now we know that manufacturing and services sectors are, these are always considered as the key enablers for the development of any economy, and of course towards the Viksit Bharat. With over 17% of the nation's GDP and 27.3 million workers of the country engaged in the manufacturing sector, it has been a remarkable trajectory and has potential to reach US, dollars 1 trillion US dollars by the next financial year, by 25-26, by the next two financial years. The services sector stands as a beacon of innovation and progress, contributing 55% of our GDP and employing over 30% of our workforce. The sector ranked first in FDI inflows, with services exports accounting to 44% of India's total exports in the financial year 2024. Now, with these initial remarks, I would like to set the stage for our last and final and very illuminating session on this particular topic. I would start by introducing our the luminaries that are on the dais, the people who can who will speak to us about this particular topic: manufacturing and services, key drivers of Viksit Bharat. To start with, we have a session chair, Dr. Amod Kumar, who's Deputy Director General of Unique Identification Authority of India, UIDAI. He's an IAS officer with 25 years of administrative experiences, sorry, in Uttar Pradesh. He has contributed significantly in the fields of public policy, e-governance, grievance redressal, education, health, and family welfare, having also received a special mention for this e-governance project at the Stockholm Challenge Award. He was the youngest recipient of a Prime Minister's Award for Excellence in Public Administration in 2008. May I request the audience to please give a very big round of applause for our session chair, Dr. Amod Kumar. Next, we have Shri Gaurav Kishore Joshi. He's joined the government of India in 2021 as a manufacturing sector expert after spending 17 years in the manufacturing industry in various senior leadership roles. He is currently heading the technical wing of Heavy Electrical Industries, HEI, Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, BHEL, and involved in the National Green Hydrogen Mission. He is also heading international cooperation for free trade agreements, market access, product-specific criteria, rules of origin for heavy electrical industries. Please put your hands together with me in welcoming Shri Gaurav Kishore Joshi to this session. Now, our own CS Mahavir Lunawat, he's another speaker for the session. He's a group founder and managing director of Pantomath Advisory Services Group, which is a SEBI registered merchant banker, SEBI registered stockbrokers, and SEBI registered portfolio managers. He is the chairman of Association of Investment Bankers of India, AIBI, and represents on various expert groups, committees formed by the SEBI, stock exchanges, and trade bodies and chambers. With over 20 years of vast exposure, he has worked extensively in the areas of corporate governance. He has also been a former Central Council member of ICSI. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome him with a thunderous round of applause. Thank you very much. And we have Dr. Rajiv Roy, who combines academia and entrepreneurship. Currently, he is spearheading one on, did I read it right? An alternative business school that offers innovative long term programs, cutting edge training, and tech management consulting. An active angel investor and startup mentor, he has driven entrepreneurship development in 14 countries across 4 continents. Wow, that is wonderful. So, I would request all of you to please put your hands together in welcoming Dr. Rajiv Roy also. Thank you very much. Now, this session envisages deliberations on government initiatives, leveraging opportunities for growth in manufacturing and the service sectors, addressing challenges, roles, and opportunities for professionals in supporting these sectors in India, in driving India towards its own developmental goals of Viksit Bharat. Now, with that, I would request the session chair, Dr. Dr. Amod Kumar, to please uh, continue with the session. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon to all of you. And first of all, let me profusely thank ICSI for inviting me here because one, I don't have any direct experience of either the company secretary ministries or anything, or I don't even have a direct experience of manufacturing and services sector. And still you invited me. I thank a lot. And it has been a very knowledgeable experience for me personally. I have come to know a lot about this sector in these last 2 days. And my second thanks are due to all the audience who have stayed here till the last session. And it's because of you that we can have this session. And I thank you for listening to us. And we were discussing, this session suffers from three disadvantages. One, it's the last session. Second, it is just before lunch. And third, it's running late. So we'll try to make it up. And so let me now begin. As I said earlier, and as was said in my introduction, I am currently serving in UIDI. UIDI is the agency which manages Aadhaar. And I think all of you are aware about Aadhaar. So what I'm going to speak will be in two parts. First, I would like to give you a brief introduction of Aadhaar and what you should know as a professional about the largest digital identity of the world, because all of you have used Aadhaar either for yourself or for your clients. But there are many facts about Aadhaar which you would not be aware of. So I'll just give you a very, very, uh, what to say, overview or a 30,000 feet view of Aadhaar. And then, because I have worked in UP and I have seen the growth of manufacturing sector in other states, what are the, and I have worked in the field of technology, e-governance. So how the technologies which are emerging, what opportunities they offer to the company secretaries at this uh, time and in the current times, what are the threats which are there to the profession because of those technologies. So can you put on the presentation, please? I hope I'm not blocking the view. This side you can see. All the audience can see this screen as well, right? Okay. So Aadhaar is currently the largest digital identity project in the world, and we have given IDs, digital IDs to 1.4 billion residents of India. I'll just give you what is Aadhaar, what is its impact, and what are its takeaways for the company secretaries. What is Aadhaar? So Aadhaar is 9 things put together in a packet, and there is a large bucket which has 140 crore such packets. What are those 9 fields? Your 3 biometrics, your iris, your fingerprint, and your face. 10 fingerprints, 2 iris, and 1 face. Those are the 3 biometrics. What are the demographics? Name, address, gender, date of birth, and 2 contact fields which are optional, email and mobile. We take all 9 of them, put it in a packet, and when you go to make a new Aadhaar, we match it with already lying packets in the bucket, 140 crore packets, and if there is no duplicate found, then only we issue a new Aadhaar. So that is the way through which we ensure that you cannot, nobody in this country can have 2 Aadhaar numbers, and no 2 persons can have the same Aadhaar number. So it's completely unique. That's why we call it unique digital ID. It's without intelligence. You would have seen other IDs, driving license, passports, PAN card. Looking at the PAN card number, you can tell a lot of things about that person. Looking at the driving license number, you can tell. But looking at Aadhaar number, you cannot tell anything about that person. It is without intelligence. It is unique. और एक चीज जैसे आत्मा होती है वो आपकी मृत्यु के बाद भी रहती है, उसी तरह आपका आधार नंबर आपकी मृत्यु के बाद भी किसी को असाइन नहीं किया जाता. सो इट इज नेवर असाइंड. That means the Aadhaar which is made for at your birth will continue with you for your whole life, and that is why whenever I go, I advise people कि आपको 10-10 डिजिट के मोबाइल नंबर तो 10-15 याद रहते हैं, लेकिन अपना 12 डिजिट का मोबाइल आधार नंबर याद नहीं रहता. So it is worth memorizing your 12 digit Aadhaar number because it is going to stay with you for your whole life. It is inclusive, it is verifiable, and it is foundational ID. It is purpose blind. Foundational ID means Aadhaar, as in English, is foundation. So आधार के बेसिस पे और आईडीज बनते हैं, लेकिन और आईडीज से आधार का कनेक्शन नहीं है. सो इट इज अ वन वे प्रोसेस. So there are many IDs. You also deal with all these IDs. They have Aadhaar number in them. But we, if you ask in our authority, giving somebody's Aadhaar number कि उनका PAN क्या होगा, उनका ड्राइविंग लाइसेंस क्या होगा, Honorable Supreme Court of India has barred us from keeping any such information. So there is absolutely zero chances of profiling using Aadhaar. You have to go to all the different authorities to find out somebody's IDs or anything. From Aadhaar, you cannot. It is purpose blind. So when you authenticate, like when you are working for your client, he gives you OTP and you submit and you authenticate using OTP. In Aadhaar, we only tell yes or no, and we do not know for what purpose that resident was authenticated. There are 2 kinds of authentication we do, demographic and biometric. I'll not go into the detail, but you would all be very familiar in your profession about eKYC. So eKYC, we return these 6 fields if we get the Aadhaar number and biometrics. And let me clarify, we only do authentication, we never do identification. What does that mean? That means that any request which comes to Aadhaar authority has to come with an Aadhaar number and 1 field. अगर आप किसी का ऐसे ही फोटो भेज देंगे या फिंगरप्रिंट हमें देंगे और कहेंगे कि बताइए ये कौन है, वो काम हम कर सकते हैं लेकिन करते नहीं हैं, क्योंकि ये प्राइवेसी वायलेट करता है. We also do offline verification for rural areas where there is no internet and you cannot access our servers or our central database. There we do. So this is a small video.
आपकी सुरक्षा हमारी प्राथमिकता है। सुरक्षा के साथ सत्यता और विश्वास भी आता है। आधार को ऑफलाइन वेरीफाई करना है आसान और
You
सुरक्षित।
can use it for
प्रत्येक
your
आधार कार्ड
clients.
में
You can
UIDAI
use it
द्वारा जनरेट
for
किया
other
एक
purposes in your daily life.
जो आपको बिना इंटरनेट के भी आधार सत्यापित करने की सुविधा देता है। इस क्यूआर कोड को हैक करना, बदलना या नकली बनाना असंभव है। इस क्यूआर कोड को केवल यूआईडीएआई के आधार क्यूआर स्कैनर ऐप या एम आधार ऐप से ही स्कैन किया जा सकता है। इन ऐप्स को आप गूगल प्ले स्टोर या आईओएस ऐप स्टोर से अपने स्मार्टफोन में इंस्टॉल कर सकते हैं। आधार के सत्यापन के लिए ऐप को खोलें, क्यूआर कोड को स्कैन करें। स्कैन के बाद आपको आधार नंबर धारक का नाम, फोटो, पता, डेट ऑफ बर्थ, मास्क्ड आधार नंबर, जेंडर, मास्क्ड मोबाइल नंबर और ईमेल आईडी दिखाई देंगे, जिससे आप आधार को तुरंत वेरीफाई कर सकते हैं।
So this is something which generally people are not aware of and which you should be aware. The other new thing which you must know is face authentication, because earlier Aadhaar was only doing fingerprint based authentication or iris based or OTP based. But this new technology will affect your profession as well, that in another 2 3 years there will be face authentication. And face authentication means that somebody can authenticate even without OTP, sitting in their home using their smartphone. So there are 80 crore smartphones in this country. So sitting at your home, you can point your smartphone at your face and it will match your Aadhaar number and database stored, the face is stored in your database and it will authenticate you. So sometimes people complain that OTP can be compromised or somebody else can use the OTP, but this requires presence. On the other hand, you can do it from the convenience of your home. And for Jeevan Praman, for pensioners, last year roughly more than a crore pensioners used this for their authentication. So I'll just skip. And I just told you the advantages for senior citizens and manual workers. Face authentication is very convenient, and this is the most new thing which is going to change all the authentication ecosystem across the country. This is also very interesting. In this country, we have 1.4 billion Aadhars, roughly 74,000 enrollments per day, and I don't think any of you would be aware that every day we do 70 million authentications. So 70 million times people of this country are proving their identity in some way or the other at some location. Maybe it's at the bank, maybe it's at a ration shop, maybe it's getting a SIM, maybe authenticating themselves somewhere else, getting an OTP. 70 million every day and 13 million eKYCs per day. So that's the level of scale. The other thing which is there is that we have empowered roughly 25 to 30 crore citizens of this country who never had an ID before. They have an ID now. Jam Trinity, I think most of you would be aware. This is these are the three things in which India is unique, I think. We have almost the whole population covered with the bank accounts, with digital identity and the mobile. And this gem trinity unlocks what when you use UPI, it is only because of the gem that you are able to use UPI. And DBT is not much of your concern. There is a facility called AEPS. So in rural areas, people who cannot go to bank, there is a banking correspondent who goes and delivers services at their doorstep. And every day, 6 million, that means 60 lakh transactions happen in rural areas. These are the different DPIs, digital public infrastructure, where in the recent G20, the Honorable Prime Minister laid a lot of emphasis on DPIs. UPI, again, the numbers you must know, the kind of revolution which is happening in this country. Every day, 36 crore transactions happen on UPI every day. And the volume of transactions is $6.4 billion, roughly more than 50,000 crore is transacted in this country in 24 hours. And all this is through small vendors. And so how the poor people have benefited from this. Then there are other Aadhaar enabled services. Property registration, I'm sure all of you would be aware that in this country, when we register property, we only see register it. We don't go into the ownership detail, and we were earlier not even able to know who is selling what. But now with Aadhaar, we in 14 states, we authenticate person that is it the same person who is he or she claiming to be while selling or buying a property. This is in India, it has costed just $1.2 to make an Aadhaar card, which is the lowest in the world. And the country has gained more than 40, $50 billion by spending just $2 billion. So from the government point of view, we have gained more than 20 times. Now, income tax returns, you know that earlier you needed to send the physical copies. Now with Aadhaar, you can authenticate and you can file your returns sitting at home. Now, GST registration also, you know, how Aadhaar has simplified. Maybe there have been some cases of fraud, but reduced compliance burden is there because of Aadhaar. Now, what are the takeaways from you? Basically, you have to leverage technology to improve efficiency. And Aadhaar can play a very big role in that. The other thing which you must please understand that there are 5 basic IDs: your Aadhaar, your voter ID, your PAN, your driving license, and your passport. Please make sure that your details are exactly the same in all 5. I have seen people struggling at the last moment when some of the details don't match. So please, when you reach home, look at the all 5. We all think that it will be the same. Make an Excel table and see whether the all 5 details for either for you or for your clients stay the same. Then of course mobile and email both should be seeded in Aadhaar. And I don't know whether you use the dongle based services for e-sign. If yes, then please stop using that. You can use the Aadhaar based e-sign service. You don't need to worry about paying those costs for the dongle for e-sign or digital signatures. So digital signatures for which you earlier required a dongle can be done using Aadhaar, using e-sign. Face authentication, I've already told you, you should be aware that in future, instead of biometric, you might need to do face-based authentication for your clients and for yourself, maybe another 1 or 2 years down the line. So this was all about my introduction to Aadhaar. Now, the other thing which I've seen in working in government of India is AI. And AI is very soon, I think faster than expected, is reaching all parts of life. And I have been recently there was a global partnership for artificial intelligence. India was the chair for that, and there was a summit in Delhi. Whenever new technologies come, and I'm sure many of you know, when mobile came, when internet came, we think that it is for others, it will not affect us. But so let me tell you that, and this is related to this sector also. And I learned it here only that the cost of non-compliance is many times greater than the cost of compliance. And that is why, and but for small and medium sector, the cost of compliance is also very high. So many times these people are not able to decide whether they go for compliance, they go for non-compliance. Imagine a place like Kushinagar in UP or some remote village in Odisha or in Tamil Nadu. How will they hire the services of a company secretary? Now, and how will a company secretary sitting in a state capital cater to those rural areas? But now with the technology and now with the AI, and I think it is already happening that and it is a big threat also, and it is a big opportunity also, that the first level of advice, the first level of screening is done through AI. So your 80-90% of the job is done through AI. And then for the work for which you had to spend 100% of your time, you will spend only 10 or 20% of the time. And so a company secretary is sitting in Bhubaneswar can have clients all over Odisha or even neighboring states. And they can drive the smaller company secretaries based in small tehsils or the districts. So जो बोलते हैं कि बड़ी मछली छोटी मछली को खा जाती है, in the age of AI, it will become easier for badi machli to eat choti machli. And that is, there is a learning also there, and there is a threat also there. And you would have, I'm pretty sure you would have heard the debates around AI. Will AI replace human? Will AI be ethical? But the practical takeaway is that AI will never replace humans. But humans with AI will definitely replace humans without AI. So it is this thing you must keep in mind, that if you do not upgrade yourself, you will be washed away sooner than expected. And but that's not, I'm not creating a sense of fear. There is a big opportunity. I think the MSME sector, not only in, especially in rural areas, not only it is not only a matter of compliance, but it is also a matter of guidance, matter of exposure which you can give them to perform better, to comply better. I think I'll end here and then wait for the discussion as it go along. Thank you very much for patiently listening to me.
I would request Sri Gaurav Kishore Joshi to enlighten us with your words, please. Thank you.
Thank you all. It's an honor and privilege to be over here and with the esteemed panelists and esteemed company secretaries over here. I feel like it's an homecoming for me because I have been working in government policy as well as my background is from manufacturing. Now the focus that I am from Ministry of Heavy Industries. Ministry of Heavy Industry focuses mostly on automotive industry, then capital goods and machineries, and heavy electricals. So main focus of ministry is right now is make in India and making for the world. The point that I feel that is important for you guys to know is that more and more we are getting engaged in the global economy. And make in India is also placed with make for the world. So when we say that we want to make in India and want to ensure that our domestic market is covered, but at the same time, the focus of government India is also to ensure that we make for the world. Make for the world, when we say, it is not a protectionist measure or it is not a measure in which we say that we would not be allowing imports and etc. But our impetus or the focus of policies is more in how should we replace the things which we can easily do right now in India. And to do so, ministry has launched multiple initiatives like in automotive industry. Ministry started with FAME 1 scheme in 2015, FAME 2 scheme which is in 2019, and now it is a FAME 3 which is called as PM E-Drive in 2024. The idea is that on one side there has to be a demand creations in electric vehicles, that we create a demand that the parity between the cost matches with the ICE vehicles. But at the same time, there is also a need of creating an ecosystem of manufacturing in India. So when the FAME 2 was there, the main focus was to ensure that the designated 18 components which are used in electric vehicle are not imported, but they are manufactured or they are assembled at least in India. But more and more, where we now go towards the next level, we see that these manufacturing is not just assembly. It also needs to go to the deeper level, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. We need to see more in the sustainable supply chain, where we see that our focus or India's manufacturing is focusing not only to the first level of manufacturing, but also level below and one more level, that is level tier 3. And to do so, government started multiple PLI schemes. The aim of this PLI scheme was to ensure that we focus and try to become a global manufacturing hub. And this PLI scheme tried to remove the or try to help the industry to bring in the capital, as well as to ensure that industry also shows the performance by showing the sales is happening in that region. So that's why it's got a production link incentive scheme. So when we say production link incentive scheme, you have to comply with the local manufacturing, show that domestic value addition is happening. And this domestic value addition formula is also nowadays coming into the international corporations. More and more countries would like to trade with India. 15 years back or 10 years back, mostly foreign originating boards were not mainly focusing on India but on other countries. But nowadays we see that every board meeting, or at least main task, is to focus what can be done in India. How do we create an India plus one strategy? How do we ensure that the India's essence or India's capabilities are utilized? And this is seen by having a continuous focus on India, that our stability, that our focus is during the geopolitics, and also to ensure that how do we create that ecosystem that can be utilized for the world, because we are a country where we work with multiple countries. We work with United States, we work with Russia, we are in touch with Australia, we want to be a partner with Europe, we want to be a partner with UK. And to ensure that we do this, we have to find out a free trade agreements, and this free trade agreement starts with focus that what can be imported India and what can be exported India. What do we open up for our manufacturers? What do we open up for manufacturers over there to supply over here? So this is a trade matter. And these trade matters happen with the value addition or domestic value addition. Both sides are on equal sides, and both sides would like to get more on the other country's side. So my focus or our country's focus right now is to ensure that we find out those gaps in which India can supply more. We see that our manufacturing sector is doing good. We see that our stability is good. We see that our domestic consumption is increasing. We see that there is a continuity in the government. We see that these are all the factors which makes investors to invest more in India, as well as to find out the supply chains which are not or which are more democratized to ensure. So basically what I'm trying to say is that doing the things small and incremental will ensure that our manufacturing sector will grow. We see that the policy that we have been working right now is making sure that what we want to do in 2047. We see that 2047 is somewhere 25 years down the line. But where do we want to reach by 2030? And when we see that where do we want to reach by 2030 and where do we stand? And this is the gap that is driving right now. And the major challenge or major opportunity which comes out of because of these challenges is the changing landscape, which is about the net zero. We see that more and more focus is coming on net zero, that the carbon emissions needs to go down compared to 2005 and where we want to reach. So we see that by 2070, India wants to become a net zero. And we see that the manufacturing sector has to focus more on the net zero. And to do so, there are multiple areas like electric vehicle. There is also capital goods. MHI or ministry also works with capital goods, and capital goods is much more difficult because the volume is less and variety is very high. Whereas automotive sector, you see that there is a volume, sufficient volume available, and variety is manageable. So capital goods policy for 2047 is in the progress, and we see that this capital goods intense policy will create more ways how do manufacturing or the where governments needs to pitch in. Government pitch ins where there is no directly return on investment for private companies to come in. And that's where the government focus right now is to find out the areas where government comes in, gives the subsidy, and over the period private companies or the companies or manufacturing companies take over and government supports come out. So it is a trajectory where it goes down and the private sector takes it up. And that is where I think the more focus coming, that our GDP contribution right now is around 14 to 70% of manufacturing. So we see that by 2047, we need to reach by 25% GDP contribution of manufacturing. And out of this, we see that right now 40% of the manufacturing GDP comes from automotive industry. We see that automotive industry is bringing around 40%, but our other sectors also need to bring in. Our more focus is going in creating an ecosystem where policy stability is there, as well as there is also a non-trade barriers. What we call as import, whatever coming or non-necessary import which cannot be localized gets a trade barrier. So for company secretaries, it is very important to find out quality control orders that various ministries are bringing out. Whichever sector you are in, you have to find out which quality control orders are coming. And whenever a quality control order comes in, it comes with certain time limit that by this time, this component would be would not be imported, but it would be made locally. So your focus should not be at the time when supply chain comes and tells you, now I am not able to import this part. Your focus should be when the quality control order came in and it said that this is the timeline we have. And it happens whenever government works, we create associations because to align with industry, we need to have an association. So we have multiple associations we work which like for automotive industry, then there are some capital good industry. So the focus should be more aligning your company with the association, because ministry tries to do inline align it with the association, and association brings the perspective of industry in front of government. So that's where two sides both work with each other. So my focus or the government focus right now is also on AI and ML. We see that manufacturing sector is focusing more, and I am also responsible for IT in ministry. So we see that the cyber security is the major threat that is coming in front of us. And we see that more and more companies are getting issues because there are cyber attacks happening. And when you connect your industry or your manufacturing system with a with AI or with machine learning or with the algorithms, you see that your vulnerabilities goes up. And to do so, you need to have more focused architecture. You need to have a focused checks on your patterns, whether you have changes of passwords are happening or not, whether you are using the right websites, whether you have protection on what content is being seen in your company, whether your admin users are knowing what is the impact of sharing the passwords. And these are all factors are finally are connecting your manufacturing ecosystem with company overall corporate goals. So I would suggest that as a company secretaries, be watchful on QCOs, be watchful on your cyber securities, and take forward where do we land. And I expect that from this audience that we get more and more ideas how we can make more in India and what can be the next ways in which this can be done. Thank you very much for calling me over here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joshi. I would now request CS Mahavir Lunawat to please share your thoughts.
Good afternoon, all. At the outset, Very pleased to be at the home. Thank you, Mr. Narsimhan and entire ICSI team for this wonderful opportunity. Actually, I was abroad for a global offsite for our team, and today was a leisure date. But when Mr. Narsimhan called me that you are to be part of a session, I couldn't say no, and I thought, what better opportunity than this to interact with fellow friends. So, very happy to be with all of you this afternoon and being part of this esteemed learned panel. Friends, I think we have had very good macro picture of the initiative which is becoming a global discussion, and there are now countries which are requesting India to extend UPI regime and related aspects to be implemented in those territories as well. I think that calls for big round of applause for entire ministry and the chairman of the entire mission. Friends, we have had discussion on manufacturing, and I'm very glad that couple of aspects of particular contribution of manufacturing in the overall GDP and the way forward, which has been touched upon by Mr. Joshi. Thank you very much for also kind of sharing the expectations from company secretaries. What I'm going to do over next 8-10 minutes is to speak or take this discussion forward and also attempt to link up in terms of what it means for us as professionals, how do we contribute and take this benefit of unprecedented opportunity which this entire nation is faced with. Just to set the context, I think if we are to speak of manufacturing, since the theme is manufacturing, I'll stick to the theme manufacturing growth over last decade, and particularly where do we stand today in terms of Make in India, in terms of Atmanirbhar Bharat, and in terms of production linked incentive scheme. I think very few of us would have thought of telephone manufacturing, semiconductor manufacturing, API manufacturing getting done in India. And I think this is now not a plan but a reality. And this all has been made possible because of this immense policy boost and very, very specific thought provoking initiatives by the government. Friends, we have technology which was being talked about. We are talking of Industry 4.0, where robotics, AI, and IoT is now taking shape in a big way. Simultaneously, we are talking of ease of doing business, where India is placing a lot of thrust on making India a very, very easy place to work with. And of course, it's fueled by a God gifted opportunity of alternate market strategy where the entire world is looking at India in terms of reliability, in terms of growth, and in terms of trust. Backed by our youth population, we have huge demographic advantage and the skilled labor, which is at one of the cheapest cost levels, which gives an unprecedented advantage to industry in large. We have private capex fueling manufacturing and economic growth. Our capex is highest in the decade. We have we now stand as an economy, as a nation, fifth in global manufacturing, and infrastructure and logistics capex, which is again at the peak, is contributing to at least 60% of our manufacturing growth directly, indirectly, and which is again getting support from very, very buoyant domestic demand levels. Because of time, probably I'll skipping a bit faster, but will be happy to take points in the discussion. Our exports are increasing consistently, and we have significant FDI inflows in the manufacturing space. This is probably where I feel that as a sector in manufacturing space in particular, we are projected to grow significantly, reaching over $9 trillion by 47, 48. And I will probably spend a minute and a half over last three slides and then try to link up with the role of company secretaries and other professionals who have gathered here. Friends, our vision or mission as a nation to double our GDP by 2030. And if that has to happen, we need at least 2.5 lakh crore of capital formation every year. What I mean by capital formation in simple terms is that we need to raise 2 to 3 lakh crores every year through new equity issuances. And last year, if we take the benchmark of new initial public offers, IPOs which have happened, they were to the tune of 68,000 to 70,000 crores. You would have read in a lot of newspapers, a lot of media that we are having blast in IPO market. It is at the peak. We are having a lot of IPOs. But if we take these figures, we are probably at one third or less of the desired number of IPOs. So just look at the opportunity what we have in terms of the entire ecosystem, which needs 2 to 3 lakh crores of capital formation every year. And the interesting point, which is unprecedented again, is that we have 2 to 3 lakh crores of liquidity coming through domestic market. So we are in a golden era where we have demand on one side and we have domestic influx of capital on the other side. All along, our markets were significantly dependent on foreign inflows. And it used to be said that kind of entire activity in India was dependent on FIIs and foreign flows. I think gone are the days where probably the Indian domestic capital is now become so deep that we have our independent market ecosystem. So much so that personally I am seeing a new trend emerging where global corporations are now or will be now coming to India and hitting the market and raising capital from Indian market. Could we think of companies like Hyundai, companies, other companies, probably I'll not take names, who are in process to raise capital in Indian markets, to come to the Indian market and raise capital? All along, Indian companies used to look at global markets and raise capital. So that's the kind of sweet spot we are in, where we are having 2 to 3 lakh crores of domestic capital and 2 to 3 lakhs of requirement of capital. Such a beautiful ecosystem we have, where we have money which is required for doubling the economy by next 2030, which is the plan. And third, I will request your attention on the third box, right hand side, is, and that's where I think role of company secretaries and role of professionals become very critical. That out of the entire population of 16 to 17 lakh, 1.6 to 1.7 million active companies as per MCA data, we have probably less than 6,000 companies that are listed. So that's the kind of universe we need, because if we need more capital, if we have more money, we will need more and more papers. We will need more and more well governed companies to come to the market. And that's where I think the role of professionals will be humongous in terms of so many things, which I will probably summarize at the last slide. And this is the second last slide in terms of summarizing the entire discussion. And I have just tried to kind of put all thoughts in this particular slide, where we have fastest growing economy with over 7% of rate. We have very strong economic outlook. I mean, each of these points can probably be pondered upon for 10-15 minutes each, but due to paucity of time, I'm just running fast. We have decade high capex, which we discussed. Our markets are at highest level in terms of Nifty and Sensex. We are now one of the top 6 stock markets globally in terms of market capitalization, and we have emerged. Interestingly, in last calendar year, the number of IPOs which India has witnessed is highest globally. In an era where entire world has geopolitical issues or economic indicators not so positive, India emerged as one of the fundamentally strong market, and that I think attracted a lot of eyeballs, and we will see a lot of economic activity and capital formation taking place over next 2 to 3 years. Interestingly, the formalization, digitization, and demon, I mean, all these, sync up, which probably could take, had taken a lot of time. Now we'll see a lot of benefits. We are having last month 4, 4.4 million new demat accounts. In a single month, over 40 lakh of demats account opening. I think this probably we have never thought of. And seeing from the other side, we are still at probably 5% of penetration in terms of capital market reach and in terms of number of account that has opened. So we are at a very beautiful place where on one side we are seeing this kind of activity, and still that activity, when we compare to the Western world or to the denominator, we are probably at 5% of economic activity. So think of it going to, let's say, fivefold, fourfold, sixfold in next 3 to 5 years. We have humongous, unprecedented opportunity for all of us. And this is probably the last slide, so when I was returning yesterday, I was just thinking that how do we make it relevant for all of us? Because unless we make it a takeaway, an agenda for ourselves, probably it will have limited, just a conference and not beyond that. So according to me, we can probably think of fivefold role, and which of course all of us can, dwell upon and take it further. So professionals such as company secretaries are faced with an unprecedented opportunity to go beyond and contribute in nation's orderly growth by supporting businesses, at the same time ensuring high standards of governance. And what are these five-fold role agenda? Organizing businesses and preparing them, hand-holding them for capital formation. We talked about 2 to 3 lakh crores of new capital raise. Friends, simply put, if we are going to, let's say, tier 2, tier 3, if we are going to inclusivity, having those mid-level, smaller entities handheld and prepared them for capital formation, I think it's a very, very direct role where company secretaries can actually play a very, very, very significant role over there. Second is being catalyst in taking government schemes to nook and corner of industrial clusters. I think a lot of policy initiatives have been taken, will be taken by the government, but still the information asymmetry, still that gap of information reaching out to the direct intended beneficiaries is huge, and that's where I think all of us can play a significant role in taking the government schemes, taking all subsidies, taking all PLI schemes, so on and so forth, to our desired level of markets, which will probably a significant contribution as well as a significant economic activity for all of us. Third will be simplifying legal architecture and creating ideal corporate governance. That's what is, I think, our direct role. Being governance professionals, we can simplify the legal architecture and create ideal governance culture. Fourth is be an industry voice while being governance professional, which according to me could be a very, very lethal combination where we know law very well, we have governance standards imbibed in our DNA, and if we can become industry voice, we can be a very, very respected professional as an individual and professional body as an institution, bridging the gap between demand and supply. I mean, between the government forces, policy making on one side, and the industry on the other side. And lastly, contribute in modern age policy making process with trusted professional ethos. We are respected as governance professionals, we are respected as law abiding professionals. I think that is where I think we should capitalize, and we must contribute, we must come in front and go beyond and contribute in policy making, modern age policy making, because this will probably lay the foundation for our nation's goal of doubling the GDP by 2030. Friends, with this, I will probably contain here. and wish you all the very best for the future endeavors, and anywhere we can discuss, we can contribute in making our mission of doubling our GDP by 2030 and making significant contribution out of this. I'll be more than happy to do that and glad to take any further questions and your feedback and inputs if time permits. Thank you very much and looking forward to continuing discussion through this platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would request Dr. Rajiv Roy to address us now. Thank you.
Honorable dignitaries on the dais, uh, dignitaries of the dais, dear friends, and dear company secretaries. So I'm the last speaker, and I have a responsibility now to make sure that whatever I say is interesting. Otherwise, you have lunch waiting for you, or you are not going to pay attention to me. So I'm just going to say three things. Why is it that manufacturing and services are important? How to go about it? And what is your role in this? So I have a couple of questions before I start telling you. In fact, while I'm telling you all this, also I have a couple of questions. I'll use a little bit of Hindi here and there because that's a language which comes a little more naturally to me. So, any idea about बचपन से ये पढ़ते आ रहे हैं, सीखते आ रहे हैं, भारत एक कृषि प्रधान देश है. What percentage of our country derives its primary income from agriculture? Any idea? 60 is a question I have. I have a hand there. 70, 75. Anything else? Any other numbers? 30, 20. So the latest figures say that 42% of the people in our country derive their primary income from agriculture. This is a very, very interesting figure. I'll tell you why it has become extremely interesting. बचपन में हम ये सुने थे कि it was 69. You were not wrong. आप जब टेक्स्ट बुक पढ़े थे then it was 69. But this number has changed since then. Do you know, even in 2016, that figure used to be 47%. 5% of the people have moved from agriculture to other things in that meantime. Why are they moving from agriculture? Any quick ideas? Why do you think people are moving away from agriculture? It is so romantic, right? Half the people in this place would want to go back to the village and start farming. New population, which is going away. People prefer driving Ola cars to growing tomatoes. High labor cost. You talk to a farmer in the US, you talk to a farmer in the Czech Republic, you talk to a farmer in India, in Papua New Guinea, anywhere. That farmer is going to be unhappy about the economics of farming. It is not an economic activity. Humans were hunter-gatherers more than 12,000 years back. For the last 10,000 years, we were farmers. Now, that is not the primary activity that is going to pay money. A Ola driver will easily earn about 35,000 rupees in a month. I'm talking about averages, and I'm talking about what Ola tells us. A farmer with a 4-acre holding will not earn that much. Why would he unnecessarily want to do farming? He doesn't want his children to be farming anymore. That is the first point I want to make over here. Do you know what is the percentage where other comparable countries have engaged in agriculture? So let me give you some ideas. Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, all of these countries have between 20 to 30% of the population engaged in agriculture. Now you go to Europe, it is less than 2% in most countries. Advanced countries have between 0.2% to 3% of their population engaged in agriculture. Rest of them are in services manufacturing or are very blissfully taking an unemployment dole. This has to be the model that we probably have to look at. Now, people would say, no, we should be a Krishi Pradhan Desh. There is enough food on this planet. Childhood, we used to hear stories where US was dumping food in the seas so that they can maintain the prices of agricultural products. That is being done in India now. I won't get into the details of it, but it is being done in India. We overproduce. We might choose not to produce some things like dal, a few fruits, but overall, the total calories produced by India is more than its requirement. We are net exporters. Right? So there's no lack of production over there. Just too many people are involved over there. Any guesses? What is India's per capita income? $2,500? Any other guesses? Actually, a very good guess. There are various agencies which come up with these figures. If you go by the latest figure, by the latest international agency, we are talking about 2,698. Again, those of you who were probably in school around the time I was in school would remember figures of $221 also. Things have changed a lot on that. I'm a very, very proud Indian. Throughout my school career and my college career and my early professional career, I used to feel very bad about the fact that we were behind Pakistan when it came to per capita income. But now, the last 10-15 years, we have crossed them. I have a lot of relatives in Kenya. They always used to come and they used to behave like they are from a much richer country. Then I looked up and I found that that is actually true. So again, for most of my life, I was very unhappy that we are behind most of the African nations like Nigeria and Kenya. We overtook Kenya about 6 years back. Right now, we have a per capita income which is more than that of Kenya. But do you know what is the average income of an individual on this planet? Average GDP of this planet is $13,000 per annum. We are way below that. We want to reach that place. I also talked about Indonesia. I also talked about Vietnam. These are at $5,000 per annum. China is at $12,500 per annum. Thailand is at $8,500 per annum. These are all the aspirations that we should be going towards. And the only way we can do this is further focus on manufacturing and further focus on services. So that was the why. Now let us come to the how. If you look at the top 500 companies of India from any list around 2000, 2001 or so, and then go with another list of similar top 500 companies right now, you'll find that half of the companies from the earlier list don't exist now. They were not even born at that time. In fact, half of the companies from the earlier list have vanished. That is what I meant to say. In fact, if you look at the list right now, well over 15%, closer to 20% of the companies are companies which were born in the last 25 years. New companies have a lot of advantages. Let's look at the world economy. Walmart was the world's largest retailer, still continues to be so. They realized very soon that, the world is going to move online. And they decided that they're going to have an online presence. But what they could do was nothing compared to what was done by Amazon. A small little kid out of a garage who wanted to sell books online. Why? Because the genesis of that company was online. The DNA of that company is online. The DNA of the company was tech. So right now, new companies, which are starting with a clean slate, have an advantage. Speakers before me, I'm sure in other sessions as well, have talked about the importance of AI. It is there. We are looking at an era where it is going to be extremely important. Let us look at how we are going to be able to leverage that and make India a far more prosperous economy. Now, let me give you an idea. We looked at the figures where India is way ahead of its counterparts when it comes to mobile technology, right? India, China, we have far more mobile penetration than our economy or our per capita GDP would like us to believe. And UPI, many of you travel abroad, we are better at digital transactions than many of the Western countries. Why do you think? Any reasons why you think, why is India so much better? What is it that we did right? Yes. Software, adaptability. We had an advantage. We had nothing. We did not have fixed lines. That is why people went for mobiles. We did not have banks. That is why people went for UPI transactions. That was an advantage we had. Now, again, it is always the underserved who are going to leapfrog. AI is going to make a minor difference to services. The major difference that is going to happen when it comes to AI is sectors which have been technologically ignored so far. Manufacturing, mining, production, agriculture. These are the sectors which are going to get affected by AI much more than the other sectors. And that is where the hope for India lies. This is how we are going to actually go at a pace which is even now we have not seen. And finally, I would like to talk about what is the role of the CS in all this. So I've been in the startup ecosystem now for over 25 years. I was a startup owner myself. I sold my enterprises, then I started teaching. I set up incubators. I invest in a lot. And I've often seen that startups operate in a very gray area. Many startups, I'm not saying all startups, many startups operate in a very gray area. That is where it is the most lucrative for them. One of my early investments was in a company called Practo. How many of you have heard of Practo? Quite a few hands, right? So, some of you have. How many of you are using Practo? Hands, but lesser. So what happened with them? They were a company which was supposed to go and grow in a very crazy pace. It was supposed to become a unicorn, but that did not happen to them. What happened was it was muted growth. Why? Because they were in a very heavily regulated sector, they were unable to cope with the regulatory force that was on to them. As I talked to one of the startup founders, he said, if we had listened to our CS a little earlier, we would have made those changes a little earlier and we wouldn't have the problems right now. Now I'll talk about a student of mine, Dhaval Shah. Any idea which is the company he has founded? Some of you over here would have used him. He's from Ghatkopar itself. He founded Farmeasy. Was doing extremely well. Now in a lot of trouble. I won't get into the details, but his thought also was, sir, अगर थोड़ा सा सुन लेता होता लोगों का तो अब इस प्रॉब्लम में तो नहीं आता मैं. Similarly, I'll talk about now a classmate of mine, Yashish Daya. He started a company called Policy Bazaar. He had no turnover for the first 15 years of his existence. Again, same thing. He was operating in a highly regulated economy, and it was a pathway that was decided for him by professionals such as you, that he was able to then go for an IPO and increase his turnover and all that. So CSs have always played an advisory role. And for various reasons, they have stayed away from startups. I don't see startups and CSs engaging as much as they should. I think that should go up. And another point is, 4 of my investments are in companies that are run by CSs. So why don't I see more of that? Professionally qualified people such as yourselves, who are company secretaries, should be thinking more about starting their own enterprise, which is not an advisory service around regulatory matters. Get into the leadership teams of people who are starting off AI companies. Get into the leadership team of companies who are starting off new services around healthcare, educare. You are needed over there. And your presence is going to be extremely useful for the US economy. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you for listening to me and just wanted to add this. Thank you very much.
We are running short of time. I would request Dr. Rajiv Roy to please moderate the session here and forward, and the audience might have a few questions. So please take it forward.
Thank you. Thank you. If there are any questions from the audience, we'll take that immediately. If not, I'm sure we have a bunch of questions of our own as well. Anybody from the audience? We will. Yes, we have somebody from the very front.
Amodji, you suggested that all the 5 documents, passport, PAN, your driving license, they should have a common address. But while doing on your Aadhaar, there is a pre-noted things are coming. You just can't change. 3, 4 attempts has been done. So how to go about it?
I think this one.
Yeah. So basically, your question is that as I advise people that they should keep all their details in all the 5 documents same. So the address, so when I said that the 4 basic are name, date of birth, gender, and photograph. Like photograph and address are the 2 things. For example, your photograph in a passport you got 8 years back made, and now you got some other, you updated your Aadhaar. So if it looks similar, that's fine. It may not be exactly match. Name, date of birth, and gender should match exactly. Now so the photograph should look similar, but may not match exactly. When I come to address, suppose you got recently transferred or recently relocated to new city. The first thing you should do is to get your address changed in Aadhaar. In Aadhaar, you can change your address sitting at your home. You don't need to visit any Aadhaar center. Once you have changed in Aadhaar, then get it changed in other documents. For example, in your voter ID, even that is possible sitting at home. The only thing is we are lazy, we don't do it. And once that address is done in Aadhaar, voter ID, then you can look at PAN or driving license. Driving license address does not matter much, so don't bother. And passport, of course, when you make a new passport, your address will be taken from Aadhaar. So you are taken care of.
Sir. Thank you. We'll just restrict your question. I'm sorry, there'll be a few others as well. Sorry for restricting you.
Again. It's only.
Sure. Please go ahead then.
You talked about the address change. If you're changing the city, I'm talking about the same address where there is a peak noted address comes from the Aadhaar authority. Say my address is say Monica building, 9B Lodgina Road, Calcutta. You also put some nearby building. You also put some post office, which is not required. But we cannot do anything.
No, you can do everything. See, address in Aadhaar will be as you tell them. Aadhaar has no means of finding your address through other sources. When you update the address, whatever you give to Aadhaar, they will put it there. In case there is an error, you can again do it online. You don't have to visit. You do it online sitting at your home.
Thank you. Anybody from the back of the room? Can I see some hands?
Sir, again, one more question to Mr. Amod Kumar. Sir, we oftenly hear, we heard from the newspaper and all, the huge number of illegal Aadhaar cards has been issued. Based on the information, you just issue it, or on what basis there is any curtailment, you can do that. Any check is there. I'm particularly telling about the illegal immigrant, illegal people getting the Aadhaar card. There is no any check in that.
So, I mean, see, initially when the Aadhars were being made, I'll keep it simple because it's beyond the topic of that. Maybe we can discuss offline after the session is over, because the session is more about manufacturing and services sector. So initially when Aadhars were being made, there were roughly 25 to 30% people who did not have any address proof with them. And at that time, we allowed the certificate from the village head, from the mayor, from the council, corporators, from MLAs and MPs to certify the address. But now we have, so at that time, maybe some people could get maybe 10, 12 years back, get their Aadhaar card made in a fraudulent way. But since January 2023, we have done away with that practice, and you have to have a field-based verification and a proper documentation in order to get an Aadhaar made for an adult person. If you have any further doubts, I'll clarify after the session.
Thank you.
I'll inject with a question of mine. I'll be asking Gauravji, in fact. So this is something which has again been something that I have been surprised. I spent some time in the Gulf, and even in the Gulf, women participation in the workforce was much higher than what I see here in India. So the Skill in India initiative is there, and there's a lot of skilling which is being done on various fronts. But I see that when it comes to women, their participation is probably a little limited. So what is the government doing to enhance the participation of women in the workforce, whether it is manufacturing or in services?
I think recently government launched 24,000 crore scheme to skill development of women's. So basically, the idea is that means I have been previously handling the plant of only women's over there. So it requires more an, a push from management to bring in women. And push from management comes when the person is really fully understanding that women add value. And we have seen in my previous career that wherever you see there is a chronic issue, wherever see solution is not easy, wherever you see you do not have a long-term perspective, and if you bring in women over there, it changes the dynamics. Men are more risk averse, they take more risk, whereas women, and it is also proven now in various surveys that more and more companies which are run by women are more successful. So I think the focus is from both sides. One is that industry needs to believe that women add the value. At the same time, it also needs to be having some hand holding from government, like these schemes which are coming up. These schemes will help in making sure skill enhancement for women, and to ensure that the first mover advantage which is not been received by them is coming up and they get that advantage by some help from government. So I believe it requires a both side push, and it also requires understanding, and also women have a more understanding. What we have seen so far is that they would like to take care of the family. They have two jobs at the moment. One is at home and another is in office, and this sometimes brings anxiety in a women that they are not doing enough for at home, or they are not doing enough at the job. But actually that is a myth. Women add value on both sides because they bring in both sides as their own home. They consider their job as their own business. So I believe these kind of schemes, as well as the push from government, as well as push from top, will help in growing this further.
Thank you. Thank you, Gauravji.
There's a question.
Yes, sir.
Question for Mahavir. Here, please.
Yes, yes. Please go ahead.
I'm Pramod Shah. I'm Pramod Shah, former chairman of the Western region and past central council member. This question is for Mr. Mahavir. Mahavir has been a king in the public issues. But sir, I want to ask Mr. Mahavir, sir, how many, I mean, daily we see 2, 3 public issues coming up, sir. What is the ratio of how many successful are there? And what is your advice to startup and MSME, because they come in hurry and later on the projects do not take place, sir. your suggestions and your comments, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have been a source of inspiration for all of us. Glad to see you, sir. I think the question is the kind of activities that we see in IPO market, primary market, and the success rate, if I have understood correctly, and probably the overall feedback. So I think we have three-tier structure in primary market. We have mainframe market, we have market for SMEs, and we have startups also now getting listed on capital market. And this is, I think, incredibly a fantastic platform and fantastic, system in India, where even the new age businesses and smaller, lower mid market businesses are also able to come to the market and raise capital. Probably 10 years before, that was never the case, and one had to necessarily go through private rounds, which had its own challenges. But now I think government has given very seamless platform, and this is now also resulting in the globally the maximum number of public offerings that are now coming in India across the platform. So, and interestingly, since you asked the question, I'm very glad to share that the performance of Indian IPOs is again globally the best. So where more than 70% of companies are have given positive returns to investors over a sustained period of 3 to 5 years. So that again is a very, very positive factor that we have quality and we have quantity both coming to the Indian market. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahavir.
Rajiv ji, Bhavit, we are proud of you as a leading merchant banker and as a professional company secretary coming up in the diversified areas.
Thank you.
And
Thank
wish
you.
you all the best in future.
Rajiv ji, you mentioned about this. I'm here, sir.
Sorry.
This side, sir. You're right, sir.
Yes. Got it.
Thank you, sir. You nicely covered the genesis of agriculture sector and also some service sector. You mentioned about policy bazaar also. I would like to just hear have your comments on that, because this insurance business, sir, per se, it is a highly capital intensive business. It takes lot of years to break even, and initially our country was struggling for foreign participation from 26% to 49%. Now it has become 74%. And I think day before yesterday, IRDA chairman has pleaded for 100% FDI participation in insurance. Why I have mentioned this point here? Because our theme is India 2047. And IRDA is also looking for fully insured India in 2047. And this is the area, if we do something to attract the entire this corporate world to achieve this objective, then in the agricultural sector also where we are lacking, because I believe and have a firm belief that the insurance helps much to the people who are in the agricultural sector and who are below the poverty line. I have experienced that, because for them, the policy, insurance policy of say 10,000, 25,000, 50,000 is a great relief for the family if something untoward happens. So today in the world where entire Abhi, just I had a cup of tea outside, paid 10 rupees through UPI only. So everybody is in the UPI. So can we think of something to attract the entire corporate world in this sector which are highly capital intensive? And when we are talking about IPO successful and capital formation is huge in India, why still we are saying that foreign FDI is required? And all?
No,
Thank you, sir.
Completely agree with your sentiment. I think what you suggest is a way forward, which is actually very essential for the agricultural sector. And I'm sure there are going to be a bunch of things which are going to be around it. Maybe a little beyond the scope of what we are discussing over, but certainly. Thank you very much. Rupananji, I'll hand it over to you to bring us to a close. We had this.
I would request my colleague in the council, CS Manoj Kumar Purve, to kindly give the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Now, this is the concluding session for this national convention. And I'm saying this, the panelists, whosoever be here, all are from experience segment, but that segment is totally different. Mr. Roy has taken a different point of view, which I am thinking this is lacking for 2047 development. So he is pointed about agriculture segment. Now from the government side, we have two luminaries and we have listened him. And about the financial market, that is Mahavir Lunavas. If you can see the journey of him, he started with and where he is now. So again, all the panelists is totally wonderful, and more so, our Indian country is with the concept बचपन में हम पढ़ते थे mixed economy. So whether we are moving towards the mixed economy or more towards the capital economy, less towards the agricultural side. So it is again the thought process for 2014-7 because world need the food and food needs agriculture. So whether we are moving towards that level or not, so it is a question of brainstorming. And again, our government is doing wonder. We without fund we can't do anything, as said by Sir Mavish sir, 2.5 lakhs. It is not the small thing, but India is doing great, and more so SME segment. In the IPO market, extremely doing good thing, and hope so in future also. This is going to be a boom things, and more important fact. Last 10 years, we have not seen any big scam. People are saying Sensex is growing so much, but it is not the fact due to wrong reason, due to our regulators, due to we professional, we as a company secretary doing wonder. So again, with this thing, I am concluding this session of technical session. Thanks to every panelist to come on this dais and presented their perspective before you people, and hope we company secretary are going to be benefited with this deliberation. Thank you.
The publication we are releasing now is Supreme Court on IBC. I would request our session coordinators to facilitate release of the publication at the hands of our learned guests.
This comprehensive compilation, Supreme Court on IBC, is a compendium on landmark judgments of Supreme Court from 2017 to September 2024. It features a selection of more than 100 landmark cases that have shaped the insolvency and bankruptcy code since its inception. The publication provides an insightful as well as a clear understanding of the evolving legal landscape surrounding IBC. It is a reader-friendly publication from ICSI IIP and is an essential resource for professionals, students, practitioners, and academicians alike. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the release. Thank you, everyone, for facilitating the release.
I now request our session coordinators to kindly present a memento to our guest and chair of the session, Shri Amod Kumar.
Next, I request CS Pradeep Kulkarni, Chairman SIRC of ICSI, to kindly come on the dais and present a memento to our guest, Sri Gaurav Kishore Joshi.
I would request CS Preeti Grover, Vice Chairman NIRC of ICSI, to please come on the dais and present a memento to our guest, CS Mahavir Lunawat.
Finally, I request CS Mahadev Tirunagri, Secretary SIRC of the ICSI, to please come on the dais and present a memento to our guest, Sri Rajiv Roy. A huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. A big thank you to all our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Much. I would now request CS Ashish Mohan, Secretary, the ICSI, to propose the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We are at the fag end of the 52nd National Convention of the Company Secretaries. Dear members, we started our journey 2 days back on the 8th of November, wherein the inaugural session of the National Convention was honored by the presence of Srimati Madhvi Puri Bhuj, Chairperson SEBI, and we are very much thankful to her for having inaugurated the National Convention. We then followed with the first technical session, evolving SEBI regulations, steps towards ease of doing business. We saw in the cultural evening that day some caliber of our members who displayed their skills. Moving on to the next day, that is yesterday, we started our second technical session, IFSCA making India a global financial hub. Then had a special session on CSR. Then the third session on CS profession at 2047, aspirations and expectations. And we had the fourth technical session on ADR mechanism, roadmap for fast track dispute resolution, followed by the cultural evening yesterday. I hope everybody enjoyed that. Today morning, we had a very good open house wherein the president addressed all of you and also answered many of your questions. We had the fifth technical session, reimagining governance, the evolving role of boards in 2047. And the last session just now, the manufacturing and services key drivers for Viksit Bharat. I thank the entire panelists and the moderators for all these sessions. I'm not naming every one of them for the paucity of time. Indeed, we had a great technical sessions, and I hope there has been a lot of takeaways for all of you. I would like to place on record my special thanks to the sponsors, the platinum sponsor, BPCL, Reliance Industries Limited, the diamond sponsor, NSE Limited, Union Bank of India, souvenir sponsor, IDFC First Bank Limited, ONGC, gold sponsors, Adani Group, Aditya Birla Management Corporation Private Limited, Boardpack, Coal India Limited, Defmark Macro Software Private Limited, Des Digital, HDFC Bank Limited, Indian Oil Corporation Limited, NASDAQ, Sunday Capital Advisors Private Limited, Tata Services Limited. Our silver sponsors, IDBI Bank, Mahindra and Mahindra Limited, NMDC Limited. We thank for all the advertisements in the souvenir. from Aditya Birla Capital Limited, Dhwani Polyprints Private Limited, Hawkins Cookers Limited, Kalolwala and Associates Private Limited, Life Insurance Corporation of India, the Multi Commodity Exchange of India Limited MCX. We thank all the participants in the stalls, Bobcard Limited, Complinity Technology Private Limited, Corporate Professionals, Digital Business Technology Private Limited, HNI Capitals Private Limited, Leg Account Consulting Private Limited, Pro CS Technologies Private Limited, Taxman's Publications Private Limited, TSS Consultancy Private Limited, Unlock Future FinTech Private Limited, Webtel Electrosoft Private Limited, Visual Sentinel. I also would love to place on record my appreciation for the hospitality given to us by the Sahara Star. A special thanks to Clever Communications for all the technical support. And dear members, I would like to place on record my sincere thanks to the entire leadership. I thank the President C.S.B. Narasimhan, Vice President C.S. Dhananjay Shukla, past President C.S. Manish Gupta, all council members, chairman and regional council members of WIRC, all the panelists and the moderators, and the entire team ICSI. A special round of applause to the entire team ICSI, all the employees of ICSI who have made this program a resounding success. I would request all the ICSI employees to kindly come over the stage. We can have a group snap, please. And last but not the least, I thank all the members who have been here physically with us and all the members who had joined us virtually. Thank you, each one of you, for making this national convention a resounding success. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai ICSI.